Good evening. My name is Eric Lindstrom, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. It is Wednesday, August 28th, and the time is 6:55 p.m. Will everyone please stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, I'll take a roll call of the members of the commission and staff present during tonight's hybrid meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Eric Lindstrom, acting chair, Ryan Kelly, secretary.
Here.
Rick Smith.
Here and present.
Jim Stewart, professional
Here.
engineer. Benjamin Sabia.
Here.
Paul Fernandez.
Here.
Kathleen Gallagher, planning and zoning administrator.
Here.
And Andrew Brodman, inland wetland enforcement officer.
Here.
Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. The Inland Wetland Mission Statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. Meeting procedure. Please note that this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law Public Act 21-1. As such, this meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you are attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title if applicable at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of the body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. The chat features will not be utilized nor considered during this meeting. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. I ask that the applicants keep their presentation as concise as possible. The commission will then review town staff and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or in a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Please keep comments or questions direct, or a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during the response. Please keep all comments pro and con specific to inland wetlands related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
For the special meeting, no, there can be no changes to the special meeting agenda.
All right, so we've done the call to order, we've done the roll call. So now we have to fill the vacancy of the chairman. So do we have a motion to appoint somebody as chairman?
I motion to nominate Eric Lindstrom, Commissioner Lindstrom, as chairman.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second? Mr. Stewart?
Second that.
Mr. Stewart? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Since we now have a vacancy for the vice chairman, we now need a motion to nominate a vice chairman. So I motion to nominate Commissioner Kelly for vice chairman.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
And now we need to fill the position of secretary since that is now void. Do we have a motion for a nomination for secretary?
I'll motion to nominate Commissioner Sabia.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Stewart. All in favor?
Aye.
And I guess that's it.
You can adjourn the meeting.
This meeting is adjourned.
Meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Good evening. My name is Eric Lindstrom. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Inland Wetland Commission meeting for the town of Monroe. Today is August 28th, and it is 7:03 p.m. Will everyone please stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take roll call of the members of the commission staff present during tonight's hybrid meeting. Please answer here or present, starting with myself, Eric Lindstrom, Chairman, Ryan Kelly, Vice Chairman,
Present.
Ben Sabia, Secretary. Here. Rick Smith. Yeah. Jim Stewart, Professional Engineer.
Still here.
I think Paul Fernandez is not here. Kathleen Gallagher, Planning and Zoning Administrator,
Here.
and Andrew Brotman, Inland Wetland Enforcement Officer.
Here.
And I'm just going to add that James Mayo, our town engineer, is also present via Zoom.
Okay.
Here.
Before we start, I'll read our mission statement and how the meeting will proceed. Inland Wetland Mission Statement. The objective and purpose of the Inland Wetland Commission is to provide for the overall protection and preservation of the inland wetlands and watercourses within the town of Monroe. Meeting procedure. Please note that this meeting is being conducted utilizing electronic equipment in compliance with State Law, Public Act 21-1. As such, this meeting is being recorded and will be available to the public in compliance with state law. If you're attending remotely, please remember to mute your microphone unless speaking. Anyone participating remotely should state their name and title, if applicable, at the outset of each occasion that such person is speaking. All votes taken during which any member of the body are participating remotely shall be taken by roll call unless the vote is unanimous. Chat features will not be utilized nor considered during this meeting. In the normal course of our meetings, we will hear public hearings and other applications. The protocol for public hearings is to have an applicant make a presentation to the commission, during which and after which the commission will be asking the applicant questions. I ask the applicant keep their presentation as concise as possible. The commission will then review town, staff, and other independent comments. The meeting will then be open for public comment. I will ask that all comments be made to the chair or commission. After any and all comments pro, in opposition, or of a general nature are made, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. Please keep comments or questions direct, or a time limit of 3 minutes may be imposed. It is not necessary that the applicant respond, but generally in their best interest to do so. There will be no further opportunity for new questions unless new material is entered in as evidence or testimony during the response. Please keep all comments pro and cons specific to inland wetland related matters. Other applications that do not involve a public hearing will follow a similar format, with the exception that there will be no public comments allowed. The meeting follows our published agenda unless otherwise amended. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There is a change to the agenda, the bond release for 45 Greenfield Hill Road. They're no longer looking for the bond release at this time.
Okay, so we'll just remove it.
We'll just table it to the next meeting. And then James, I'm looking on here and Todd Drive is not on here. That should go under application acceptance, regular hearing determination, yes?
Correct.
So the application for Todd Drive, which is for the record meeting minutes, is application number 2024-07, file number 1488, Todd Drive. That's going to go under application acceptance, regular hearing determination.
Was that number one more time, please?
IWC 2024-07, file number 1488.
All right, so I guess we're starting with that one.
We have to do general public participation.
Sorry, right, general, all right. Is there anybody in the gallery or online that would like to speak in a general nature before we get started on any of the specifics? No one? Okay. All right, so let's move on to IWC 2024-07, 1488.
James, are you going to present anything tonight, or we just want to have it on the agenda for acceptance?
Basically, I don't have really much to present tonight, other than, I'd like the commission to make a determination that it's a significant activity, so that we can schedule a public hearing. This is a replacement of existing pipe culverts along Todd Drive, and we're gonna replace it with a box culvert. So there's just substantial work that's happening. So I know, I feel that it's a significant activity anyway, so I'm more than happy with it going to a public hearing.
My understanding is this was in your packets that were delivered.
Right.
They're not in your packets that are on your chair, but it was delivered last Friday.
So would you-
Motion that Todd Drive is a significant activity as requested by the applicant due to the potential amount of work to be proposed.
A motion by Commissioner Stewart to make this a public hearing. Do we have a second?
No second.
Second by Commissioner Sabian. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right, public hearing. Okay. Moving on, okay. IWC 2024-4, file number 1480, 1536 and 1564 Monroe Turnpike. Proposal 8-lot single-family residential development and a new road crossing a wetland adjacent to wetlands and watercourse. Jan's Land Development LLC's applicant, J. Edward Associates LLC represent. Continued from July 24th, 24.
Evening, for the record, Jason Edwards, Jan Associates, I share my screen.
So then share the screen, you press share content and share the meeting.
Our office is located at 227 Fulton Road in Easton. We are engineers and surveyors. So we were here back in July, as you all know, and we got a lot of feedback from both the commission and public. And at that meeting, a third party consultant was hired or decided to be hired to review the site. So since then, we made some changes. One based in response to the commission public comments, and then also we've got a few that we've added, after receiving the third party review last month. So I'm just going to run through those changes that we've made. I'm here with Matt Hopp, Environmental Land Solutions, and Stephen Danzer, I believe, is online. Dr. Stephen Danzer. He's Stephen Danzer, so that's wetland science or soil science. The most significant change that we made, one of the suggestions I think by the commissioner was to look at possibly sliding the roadway down the hill some, change that alignment a little bit so that we could cross at a more narrow point. Figure out how this mouse works today. So the purple is what we're proposing now. The red is where we originally had it. So you can see that where it originally was, we had a disturbance limit that was in this much larger wetland area in here, or wider, bigger area there. So we were able to shorten our radius of our tangent of our alignment at the entrance, and shorten that curve up a little bit, and then cross at a much narrower point, wetland. And this results in a difference in disturbance from, I think we had 3,800 square feet of disturbance, so roughly, with last proposal, if we were to go to a 28-foot wide road, as you recall, there was discussion. He had proposed a 26-foot wide road. Town engineer had basically directed us to increase that to at least 28 feet wide. So when doing so, we would have had a 38,000 or 3,800 square foot disturbance area. With this new roadway alignment and a 28-foot wide road, we're down to 1,100 square feet of direct wetlands impact. So that's a pretty significant reduction, in our opinion. So like I said, that's the largest change. In doing that, we also had to relocate some of the drainage here. This detention basin in front got much smaller. It really is just capturing this first section of roadway. And then this larger basin that was really in this area here, relocated to this side of the road. And that whole disturbance is farther away. It's out of the regulated area. So I don't know if you want to, I'll wait to the end for questions. I guess I'll just go through the changes. So that's that, as I said, the most significant change that we made. Another change, and this is new in response to the third-party review. There was mention in his report of, and as well, I think the public comment had mentioned that they had seen a box turtle somewhere out here. That's pretty, from what I'm told, a pretty common species to find around, even though it's endangered. But we felt it was prudent to make this passable for a box turtle. So we're now proposing Cape Cod curb here, which would give it a way to access, get up and across the road at this 50 feet either side of the 100 feet long in total. It's not 50 feet either side of the crossing, but it's about 100 feet total, I think. And this is just a picture of what a Cape Cod curb looks like. And that's before the final portion of the pavement's down. So it would actually come up to be level there, and you'd have a little ramp that the little turtle would crawl up and over. So otherwise they would get trapped in the roadway with the standard curb. That's what I understand. Another topic that was raised by the third-party review was the use of a four-sided box culvert here. We originally had proposed a three-sided box culvert. The town engineer specified that he wanted the four-sided box culvert. And we went back and talked to both the town engineer, I believe my client talked to the town engineer, right? Yes. Town engineer and the director of public works, they both indicated they wanted a four-sided box culvert. So we left it as that at their direction. Now we've changed the box design slightly. We originally had a 2-foot high culvert. And what we've done is we were going to go with a 2.5-foot high culvert that will allow the bottom to sit 6 inches below the stream bed. And then we will fill that with the stone. The idea being that you've got a lip on either side of stone that's going to hold everything in place. That's the indent. So a native stone or riprap of some sort, something big enough that's not going to move. I think we specify a modified riprap here. But we can work with town engineer to get that some format that he's prepared. Yeah.
If you don't mind, because I'm not too familiar with box drains, can you give me just a quick description of why 4 is better than 3 or 3 is better than 4, or just what the differences are and why one might be preferable versus the other?
I mean, the 4 is going to be a stronger structure. I think because, and maybe the town engineer can speak to why he prefers it too, but that would be my understanding, is that it would be stronger. James, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, the main benefits are the scour protection. So the 3-sided box culverts are more susceptible to erosion and basically wash out underneath one side, typically depending upon the flows, or both sides. And that tends to be the main issue with them. That will become an issue prior to the box itself deteriorating. So that's why with the current application, with it being turned over to the town, that's something that the town does not want to see in terms of maintenance. We would prefer a 4-sided box culvert because with this being a subdivision, this is going to get turned over to the town once it's constructed. So then the maintenance falls upon us.
Got it. Thank you.
So then, yeah, that's any other questions on that, or I'll just come back to that later. And this is additional mitigation that was added in Matt Hoppus here. He created this plan. This is also in the plan set. This is up behind lot 8, where it used to be lot 9 in the original application. We removed a lot over here. And Matt is proposing a wetlands creation area here in a relatively natural depression. And that's going to create about 2,000 square feet of additional wetlands back there. And there's also a structure to be removed there, but it would also provide us very urban access to get back into the rest of that area. You have a wetland there blocking that path. This is in response to the third-party comments. He indicated in his report that they did find one salamander, I don't recall the species, and Matt can speak to that better, but there was indication that he thought maybe that some of this lot 9 area should be protected. So what we're proposing to do is expand the open space to include that area in the rear of the former lot 9. So you add additional 2 acres of open space that would include the wetland creation area, which is right where my cursor is. It's right in the middle. And then this remaining portion would all become part of this larger open space. So we'd be going, I think it's approximately 15 acres of total open space. And this is really the end of the changes. And one other comment that I know that was discussed really more with the commission than elsewhere was the alternatives. And there was some questions specifically about the access to what's the name of the road in that? Cottage Street or Down Street. I don't know which one it is. But we had shown an alternative in the last, this is a slide from the previous set, but alternative 3, it didn't print well in the last presentation, so I just cleared this up and tried to spell out, why we had laid out this road coming in where we did. If you recall, there's a sight line. This is coming from the bottom of the hill coming up a relatively steep hill here. I would say it is a steep hill with the crest being right here. So very little sight line coming to the right, this roadway entrance. And the question was, why did we put the roadway here? Why didn't we move farther down the street? There is a subdivision regulation that requires a 400-foot separation between the intersections. And that's how we got where we got. And even if we did slide it down some, you still don't gain enough sight lines to make it safe. So our opinion is it can't go, really, this is not a safe entry point along this stretch of this, with the steepness of the road. And I think that was echoed by the residents and the public, during the last hearing. There was quite a few people that still had to say something.
What road is that?
This is this is, that's down.
That's Downs Road, not Cottage. That's
Cottage, yeah, it switches to down.
That's Downs Road?
This is down, yeah. So Cottage is actually.
Orient your map here.
Yeah, it's right around that.
It go up that.
So,
To the left, like.
okay. And so you're saying you can't do it because of the separation of the site distance?
So that's how we ended up laying this out, and it may be that, the waiver that could be requested, but even if we slid it down, the sight line still doesn't, it's still unsafe to have that road intersection there in our opinion. The sight line still doesn't work. You have
The sightline problem is due to,
the hill here.
so it's
It's a crest of a hill on top.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that I think Commissioner Kelly had asked about that too. And that's just the sideline profile that you can see, that that's looking up from that same point. You get to open top of that. And that's all from the previous.
how much would that road have to be cut?
I don't have an exact number on that. I have to get back on that. I think it was a few feet, like 2-3 feet, something like that. But they don't have much right away there either. It's all, one of the lake communities right away going 25 feet wide or certain that I think go through there. So it's not an easy task to do. I'm not even sure it's a public road, quite honestly. That could be a private road. We have to verify that. Okay, so I don't know if you want to go. How do you get back to the application? Your plan? Yeah, it is.
Good evening. I'm Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland site, environmental management solutions. One other thing, I'd like to go back about the question about the box culvert. The three-sided box culvert is, I think, preferred for wildlife movement through and under it. And when you have a four-sided box culvert, a lot of times on the downhill side, you'll get a lip. From erosion or settling, where a salamander, you're walking up the watercourse corridor, you actually come, hit the concrete structure, and you won't be able to get up and over and through the box culvert. So that's why we're we're burying that bottom pretty deeply to prevent that. So again, the three-sided I think is better for wildlife movement, but the four-sided is better for stabilization.
Matt, excuse me. So, but you're gonna put riprap in there.
Yes, yeah. So, but that's why we're giving that different prep. So sometimes, the bottom, maybe it settles a little bit, the riprap might go down. But I think that we're proposing on the downhill side to reinforce that with the concrete so it doesn't go down. So there is no lift for wildlife movement, so it will be continuous.
So it is actually you have structure on four sides,
Yeah.
you cover the bottom with riprap. And isn't there a chance that riprap is only 6 inches that could get washed out by this kind of storm we had 2 weeks ago?
I'll leave that up to the engineers to size the stone, but I would think that it would be sized so it doesn't get washed away. It's probably bigger than 6 inches, I would think.
Just look at your document.
Yeah, that's the point. We're gonna go just to the plan. So Jason kind of touched on it. But we have a wetland creation area of 2,000 square feet. Right here is an existing structure that's out there in the form of leach cellar or wherever it was. So that actually gets removed and just to the out, which got I don't know there's side of the high trunk through here. We're going to propose to lower that grade slightly lower than the elevation of the existing wetland over here inside. And you can show which is wetland over here, and that was a great habitat. About 2,000 square feet gets planted with shade trees and some shrubs and gets seeded. And so access is pretty straightforward right through here. It doesn't touch the wetland on this side here. So this wetland flows to the east. This wetland over here kind of flows down to the northwest. And then on the overall landscape plan, based on the revised culvert, revised wetland crossing, I adjusted the plantings accordingly. So I did review the report by Dr. Clemens. I just had three comments. One is on the potential vernal pool area. The second was on the wood frogs. The third was on the dusky salamander. So just start with the potential vernal pool area. In my opinion, there is no vernal pool on the site. This area right here is the area that they were talking about potential vernal pool. It does lie in the depression. There's a rise on the east side, and the south side to the hillside over here, and it's kind of the southwest side. It rises, but when you go to the north, water flows straight out, straight down. I did visit this site last Friday morning, and I went to the exact same location where Clemens took the picture. That's good. This is my photo, and this is, I think, the same location where Clemens took his. You can see the branches going across wetland. This tree back right there kind of forms a line, and the trunk that comes up and it splits to form a line. And so this area is that he's calling a potential vernal pool. There's no body of water in here after 10 inches of rain. And if the next photo is taken a little bit further down here, we'll still see this tree. We'll still see this tree, and then in the third photo, be that right there, and where it shows the stream, that drains this area. That's just not what I think. Yeah, it's okay. So that's the treatment of the line. And you can see there's a water course right through here that drains this area. And the next picture is taken right through here. And right here is there, the kind of the depression that drains this whole area. So there is a water course that drains it. To be a vernal pool, you have to have pool of water. And again, this is after 10 inches of rain. I walked up the hillside was soaking wet, as you can expect it. I spoke to Steve Dancer. I told him I was going to come out here and look at this area. He said, every site that he was there that week in Fairfield County had tons of water. So they said, don't be surprised that there's ponding here. But again, there is no ponding of water in this area. Again, the topography doesn't allow for it. There's also, so let's jump on to the wood front. The overall site plan. The wood front is typically found in vernal pools. We're trying to get the overall site plan and show approximately where the Dr. Penn found the keep going overall one. I can take the whole open space there. That's good. And this is the overall plan. You can see on this hillside, seems right through here. That wood front was kind of found up in this area here. So if you walk up the slope, up in this area right up here, off this side, there's a detention basin that ponds water. In December 30th of last year, it had standing water. Last week, it had standing water. It has phragmites in it. So that, in my opinion, that offsite detention basin would be where that wood fry probably came from. I think that's one of those. Okay, so back to the photos of that area. This detention basin's got a control room structure. First, another one. Actually, you don't have it in here, but I think I could email it. But there is again a detention basin that's off-site. It's got a berm, surrounded by a berm. It's got a control release structure. It has a pipe that comes out of it, standing water, and it's actually in the vicinity of where that wood frog was found. Again, my opinion, there's no vernal pool on the site. There's no potential vernal pool on the site. The northern dusky salamander kind of found in that former lot 9 area. That habitat, that site's going to remain undisturbed. Our development lies, downstream of that area and kind of on the other side of the water course of corridors. One comment that Clemens did make about kind of where the development is, with the 8 lots, he did say the overall terrestrial habitat, that's kind of those 8 lot areas, is not of high quality, supporting many invasive species. So I think that he kind of identifies that as a low quality area for one, which I think I would agree with. And the development saves and protect those higher quality hillside seeps. It's one large chunk of open space. I think it's 15 acres or so in size. I think that's it, unless there's any questions. I don't know if I could email you that photo. Check it out. So again, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to.
And also just for the commission, Dr. Michael Clemens is here via Zoom. If we want to give him the opportunity to speak, and then you have both the opportunity to ask him and the applicant and follow.
Steve.
Okay.
Is he listed on Zoom?
Let me take a look.
he was trying to get on with that.
Does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next? Go.
No, I'd like to hear from you.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
He's on. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Right, thank you. For the record, my name is Dr. Stephen Danzer. I'm a soil scientist, professional wetland scientist, and a Connecticut licensed arborist. I have a doctorate in renewable natural resource studies. My office is in Stamford, Connecticut. I've been in business, I think, since 1999. So I think I'm coming up on year 25 for what that's worth. Anyway, I'm going to be brief. Dr. Clemens posed the question about my methodology. Actually, let me go back a second. On the record, dated March 21st, 2024, I submitted a memo regarding the question of whether or not there are vernal pools on the site. And I basically had a very short and brief memo. I apologize for the brevity in the memo, but I thought I had a succinct point that I wanted to get across. And I said I investigated the entire site on March 21st, 2024 for the purpose of locating, identifying any vernal pools that may be present. There were no vernal pools present on the site. The wetlands were too sloping and or lacked sufficient depth for seasonal pooling of water required for vernal pool species. I had also visited the site several times during the month of October 2022 for the purpose of delineating the wetlands. At that time, no potential vernal pool areas were observed either. So anyway, I thought that memo pretty much spoke for itself. I understand Dr. Clemens probably didn't have the opportunity to review all the application materials, or if he did, he kind of glossed over, which is understandable. The fact that I was the soil scientist on record, which means that I spent a lot of days and a lot of hours hiking up and down that site, chasing the wetland boundaries. I'm the soil scientist of record that verified I flagged and verified the wetland boundaries. So I'm intimately familiar with that site. At the time, and I delineated, I believe it was in the fall of 2022. Being that I spent a lot of time in the wetland areas, I made a lot of observations. And one of the observations that I remember making is the fact that there was no area there that was suitable for vernal pools. Yes, I didn't have a methodology in mind when I did it, but I literally had trekked over the entire site, and I'd walked and delineated every wetland that I knew of on the site. So that was my methodology. It was basically very thorough. Then the question came back up again a year or two later. So I went out March 21st. I was right in the middle of vernal pool season. I actually went out, I believe I went out on 2 days. It wasn't just March 21st, because when I came back to the office, there was another question that was posed, and I had to go back out and look at that. But in any case, I had the same observation that I had made in October 2022, which is that there was no topography on the site that supported a seasonal pooling water body. Without the topography, that's adequate for a vernal pool. There's no pooled water. Without pooled water, by definition, you don't have a vernal pool. On top of that, I also looked at secondary indicators of pooling water, such as water lines on the base of tree trunks, discolorations in the leaf litter, hummocks. I also looked for any vernal pool wildlife species. I actually listened for them. I didn't hear any wood frogs. I didn't see any spotted salamanders. There was no pools to sample, so I couldn't look for egg larvae. But anyway, the bottom line is that conclusion that I had was there was no area that was either deep enough or lacked an outlet. The area was basically too sloping, so therefore there was no area that was sufficient for vernal pools, and that's pretty much what I stated in the memo. Because of that, there was no opportunity and no reason to do dip netting or anything like that. So I just didn't think that the memo that I introduced at the time really required any more than what I said. But that's the reason, and that would be my response to Dr. Clemens' question about what my methodology was. Thank you.
Chair, just really quickly, Chris Russo Rizzi LLC, offices at 10 Susquehanna Road, Fairfield, here on behalf of the applicant. Steve, I know you said this in the presentation, but because it was specifically mentioned in Dr. Clement's report, he recommended that for observing vernal pools, that March was an appropriate time. And I just wanted for you to confirm that you did go to the site and observe it in March.
Yes, it was on March 21st, 2024. Other vernal pools in the vicinity that were vernal pools, they were let me say, if there was a vernal pool there, it would be expected. It was a rainy night that I went there. If there was a vernal pool, I probably would have heard the wood frogs quacking if there was anywhere on site.
Sure, do you want to go over questions for him or?
You guys have questions at this time, or you want to wait?
Well, I wanted to hear from Dr. Clements.
Yeah, I'm interested in that as well.
Okay, let's bring on Dr. Clemens then.
So just a friendly reminder to this commission, we hired a third-party consultant to review the environmental aspects of this project. You as the Inland Wetland Commission, you are your own agency, separate and independent from other commissions in this town. And so as you are looking at this from an environmental perspective, I just remind you of that. I know that we do ask for input from staff and town engineer and things of that nature. However, you know, you guys are reviewing it as it relates to the inland wetland regulations and the state statutes as it pertains to your scope of work. So Dr. Clemens, if you are available, we'd love at this time for you to take the opportunity to review your report of the application material and the site.
Hey, do you see me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I don't see myself anywhere on the screen of participants, which gave me pause, but as long as you can hear and see me, that's great. Let me first start with Dr. Danzer. I was aware that you were the soil scientist, and you gave verbally a lot of the information that I was lacking. You discussed when you were there, what you were looking for. You really rounded out those 3 sentences quite nicely. So I'm quite satisfied with that. My report really speaks pretty much for itself. The vernal pool question, I think, has been answered by Dr. Danzer. Probably the most valuable wetland dependent resource on the site are the dusky salamanders. I'm not quite clear, I think I'm clear, on if the entire lot 9 is now going to be placed in conservation. They're like 4 or 5 fingers of seepage. Are they all going to be part of the open space? It wasn't clear to me. That would certainly be my recommendation. And the site is pretty degraded. You saw a lot of the invasive plants. You saw the earthworm castings. The really important wetland feature from my perspective on site are the dusky salamanders. There are only a handful of sites in Fairfield County where they remain. They used to be widespread. They need that very seepy, rich detritus laden areas to survive. And generally we have a lot of flashiness and erosion, which is in most urbanized or suburbanized areas. These salamanders have disappeared. I tried to explain why they're not on the state list, because the state list looks at the whole state. Certainly up where I live in Northwest Connecticut, we have good dusky salamander populations, but down in the urbanized area of Connecticut, they're extremely scarce. I think if you protect that entire seepage area entirely, don't allow a lot of foot traffic in there, don't allow harvesting of timber, I think you'd be able to sustain those salamanders in those seepages, which I think is a pretty nice thing to do in the context of this development. The only other thing, and I know when I've sort of been outgunned on this, I really believe that the 3-sided box culverts are superior for wildlife movement. I do recognize there can be weakening. I've actually never heard of a maintenance issue being the reason to go to, for Wetlands Commission, to go to a less environmentally secure way of doing it. I think they're trying to create a natural bottom by digging it in, was it 6 inches or a foot? I don't know how that bottom will stay in place. My biggest concern on the four-sided culvert is that eventually on the downside, you will have a pool made through erosion. You'll have basically cut off those seepage areas from the watershed. And that's what I was trying to avoid. I also suggested what I've often done in other subdivisions is creating a span rather over it, so there'd be no wetland take and no need to create a mitigation wetland. But I'm still in favor of the three-sided culvert. I'm not sure how this is going to work by putting a concrete lip. I don't know what kind of stones they're going to put in the bottom of that culvert, if they're going to be flat, suitable for salamanders, if they're going to be jagged riprap, that certainly isn't going to be very helpful. So I don't know enough about what they're proposing to really say whether it'll work as well. So that's the only divergence. And you do have lanternflies. I don't know if you've recorded them yet in Monroe, but that's a species that's really coming into Connecticut. And so this is, from my perspective, first time I've seen it in this part of the state. So I don't think there's much else to say. All in all, I think the removal of Lot 9 was the most significant thing that the applicant did. I think if they had done Lot 9, there would have been a lot more talk about wetland impacts. I think that's really all I have to say for this. I'm happy to take any questions. I think the report speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Clemens. Ray, do you want to start with a question?
So just to clarify, Dr. Clemens, I first off, thank you for your looking into this and trying to be impartial. But with regard to vernal pool, are you satisfied that there is no vernal pool on this location?
I'm fairly satisfied. Hearing what Dr. Danzer said, which wasn't in those 3 sentences, it was a lot more of a robust discussion of how he did. And frankly, March 21st was the only time that is of consequence. The fact that he was delineating wetlands in October, that's great, but it wasn't really what I wanted was that spring check, which he did. And he added a lot of depth and breadth to his short report, what he was doing, looking for signs of inundation, that there were other vernal pools active nearby. So I think I'm fairly satisfied. And I think Mr. Pop is probably correct. They could be using that detention basin, which is generally something we don't like to see them do, but they do it when there's detention basins. They sometimes inhabit them. So yeah, I'm as certain as I can be that they're not on the site. And I do appreciate looking at that one area that I indicated could pond water, and I think it was either Dr. Danz or Mr. Pop satisfied me that that area is not able to pond enough water.
Well, you're the experts, but I do have a follow-up question there. There is a creation of wetland area. Mr. Dr. Pop, is it, or Matt? Dr. Pop?
Matt.
Matt is suggesting a creation of 2,000 square feet of wetland area. Now, you probably can't, you don't have the document in front of you, but this is right in the area by that root cellar, which is where I would have thought a vernal pool, if it was located, that any vernal pool would be in that area. I'm not a biologist, but it looks like a great area to be creating wetlands. What is your thought about creating wetlands and the possibility of adding 2,000? What do you suggest there? Any comments?
Well, yes, and I do have a comment. Yes, people like to do this wetland mitigation for wetland loss. Basically, I think the biggest wetland benefit is the conservation of those seeps. And I think if there was more emphasis given to how that is going to be protected and secured, I'd be more interested in that than creating a pond. I know there's this idea that we should replace everything, and I've gone on many projects and in my own town where my own commission, and we don't really always have to replace it. I'm more interested in what we are basically, the qualitative benefits of what's staying on the site. So I'm neutral on the pond. You may get wood frogs using the pond. You may get species that are not particularly useful, like bullfrogs and that. I don't have any strong feeling. I wouldn't necessarily require that of the applicant. If the applicant is really can really commit to really a permanent conservation restriction or easement on that, what was lot 9, I think that's a much better quid pro quo than creating yet another small wetland.
And that was a question I was thinking about asking Dr. Clemens, what his thought was about the wetland creation area. Because it is disturbing.
Yeah, right.
That's an undisturbed habitat. And kind of in my opinion, I think that, we remove the wetland creation. Where we are disturbing the wetland, it's a wetland road crossing, where you're still allowing the main function, conveyance of water through there. So again, I think that was mainly done just for demonstration purposes. If you really want it, then we can do it. But in my opinion, I think it's more valuable just to leave that area, alone.
I would concur with you because my thought is leave, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I appreciate your wanting to do this as a token of your appreciation, but I agree that just don't. My thing is you got invasive species already. You open up an area.
Exactly.
And then, the most aggressive plants, which are the invasive ones, are going to try to take over. So I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and I'd like to expand on that and kind of getting back to the culvert. So Dr. Clemens had mentioned that he wasn't a big fan of riprap going down there. So I guess my first question is, do you have another type of material you would prefer, and can you recommend it? Or at the very least, can you guys look into it? Because if we're not going to expand the wetlands in another area, let's do a better job of what we're disturbing and make that as good as possible for all the critters and make sure that we don't have any issues in the future. So,
we'll have to work with the town engineer, because it's going to have to be approved and accepted by him. But we could come up with some flat stones. There's other things that we've done in the past that we can look at, James, and come up with a solution that's best for the environment, but also acceptable.
right.
We recently saw, and we'll talk about it later, on Gusky Pond, but the power of water is amazing. And to me, it's almost, I don't know what you're thinking as far as six inches of stone is not going to last.
Well, just keep in mind that what we just saw for a storm was far above anything that we designed.
I understand.
That was $1,000-year storm or whatever.
I understand, but water wants its way, whether it's in an immediate storm, whether it's over time, water wants its way. So I agree with Dr. Clemens with regard to the bottomless, that it's more of a span than it is a culvert. And I don't want to step on James Tomato's toes or anything, but I just don't see a box culvert being the best solution. I would much
Based on
understand.
concern though, if you don't have anything, having the concrete bottom provides that stability beneath it. So if the power of the water is going to destroy whatever you put underneath that bridge, whether it's a span or it's, you're going to have that washout there versus the concrete, which would hold up through the water, through the power of the water is the idea, or at least better than loose stone or dirt or whatever might be there now.
So we've seen a lot of washout in that specific area because when they put that farm road in, they didn't take into account, and so it washed it out a different way. And that's what it's going to do. You're trying to direct the water through an area, in a narrow area. So you're going to have some problems. But if the three-sided culvert is done correctly, or more of a span is put on there to leave the natural bottom, I really think that that's preferable. I'm not a hydrologist,
I'll let
but
James speak to that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. One thing I'd like to expand on what Dr. Clemens and the conversation that's already been having about this culvert. In terms of the Wetland Commission, you guys are like solely looking at the environmental impacts of the disturbances. My current comment and recommendation is not necessarily wetland driven. It's actually more planning and zoning driven, which I'm giving to the applicant now. So that this way, ideally, whatever gets approved through you will hopefully get approved through planning and zoning. This way, there's not a change, because if they come in with a three-sided, with the way the current application is structured, we're going to have an issue down the road. And that's what I'm trying to avoid by issuing my recommendation. At least, again, this is all based upon how the application is currently structured as a subdivision. I will admit, it is also my understanding too that a three-sided is more environmentally friendly. However, I do have to caution on referencing the most previous storm that we have had. It was strictly off the charts, and these box culverts are typically designed for 100-year storm. We basically got like a 5,000, or it was double of the 1,000-year storm, and it goes up only like a couple inches every, like, from 500 to 1,000. It only went up a couple inches, and it's literally double of the 1,000-year storm. So there's no engineering principle and or design that is going to be able to be implemented where this box culvert, if we get that same event, is not going to go over top the road. So when we're talking about minor erosion and things like that, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you're not, I don't want this commission to harp on the most current storm that we have just experienced in the town of Monroe, because there's no way to design to that storm. And if there was, nobody would pay for any development. It'd just be practically infeasible.
No, I'm not, I said, if I can clarify, yeah, I think it's more over time. And that's what we've seen on this farm road, is that over time, it's tried to make its own course. And so, that's just where I stand. That's it.
And just to echo James's comment, is, as he's saying, Planning and Zoning Commission and Wetland Commission, you're statutorily authorized and serve separate and independent functions from each other. You don't necessarily condition your approval on their approval. You're a distinct, you function with separate and distinct jurisdictionals and authorities. So just to keep, that in mind as you guys make a decision. That is his recommendation from a planning and zoning perspective. But you are two independent and separate distinctions.
We're talking about a master road worker in the development organization. And I just believe that if they wanted to, and you can disagree with me, I wish you would, if you don't think so, but I think you could put a three-sided on across that and not disturb that. I just don't want to disturb what's already been disturbed more. And I appreciate that you now have it down to 1,100 square feet per your calculations, but still, disturbance in that area is crucial. This is the very heart of that lot, as far as the flow of water through that. And
can you explain the installation process, the difference between a three-sided and a four-sided? How much disturbance difference is there? Because if we're worried about the disturbance, how much do we got to dig up to put in a 3 versus a 4? I think that'll help clarify this.
Good evening, Mike Chisnowski from Dan Plan Development.
Can you move the mic a little bit? I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Okay. Now, we've done a lot of box culverts over the years. The strongest, and I appreciate James' concern about that, is a four-sided box culvert. And they got to think about the structure of, the road, or, box culverts anywhere where there's water flow. Okay. In my experience, when I've gone back to see box culverts that we have done in the past, particularly on Blank Meadow Drive, that's a big box culvert. And I noticed that the natural erosion from the course of water courses and over the years creates its own bottom, a rocky, silty bottom, nothing that's jagged or anything like that. And you can go over there and look at it yourself. I did take a picture of it recently, but I do support, I agree with James because it's stronger. And they don't want to have, if you got a three-sided box culvert, that could get undermined very easily. And, you know, with, especially with heavier rains, nothing like last week, that would take down anything. But I think that that's the proper way to go, structure. Okay, environmentally, it will create its own inside the box culvert, is what I think. We're gonna make this box culvert deeper. We're gonna use we'll talk to James. Maybe we could use a flat rock bottom, you know, coming into it, filled in with natural, soils that are around that. And, you know, if, you know, it would allow, flat rocks inside the culvert, we can do that too.
And just Dr. Clemens is raising his hand if the commission would like to entertain.
I would like to.
I just wanted to get a little clarification on the actual installation process. If you could explain the disturbance between a three-sided and four, like, I just want to know what.
He's gonna have to excavate footings for either one of them, so.
Right.
You're gonna have maybe a little bit in the center that won't be undisturbed, but it's very little if any. By the time you excavate footings there and everything else for the three-sided or the four-sided, you're gonna have almost the same disturbance. So it really comes down to the long-term, you know, maintenance and longevity of the structure is a benefit versus the negligible amount of difference in disturbance during construction.
No, I would prefer the ecological salvation over in a three-box culvert, because I think it's a more natural surface and there will be some erosion, but if you do a three-box culvert, small section, the dimensions you're talking about in this document, I don't see where it's gonna.
In the end, it's gonna be owned by the town of Monroe,
Yeah.
and we have to kind of go with what James is dictating to us. We can't propose something to you and then go to planning and zoning and have to say, you have to do a four-sided, then we have to come back to you.
That's the conflict I'm seeing in my mind, right? Because our job is to protect the environment, the waterways, and the construction process, what's more sound from that perspective is not in the purview of the things we have to consider. So I don't want to send you somewhere like with a bomb that's going to fail and we all know it, right? But we have to protect and preserve what we're responsible for. And so I do see, I'm very curious from Dr. Clemens' perspective, you know, what is the biggest concern about the four-sided culvert? Is it the installation? Is it the long-term, environmental impact? What it will look like, immediately after, 5 years from now, 20 years from now? What is the greatest concern about the four-sided? And is there anything that can be done to mitigate those concerns? Or is that sight unseen? Should we be talking about alternative options going forward? Period. I'm curious. We asked you to be our expert in this aspect of the conversation.
First, you could help me greatly, because I don't know who is speaking. If it's commissioner or the applicant.
It's a commissioner, yes, Commissioner Kelly.
And who was the fellow that was speaking prior to that?
It's the engineer for the applicant.
Jason Edwards in.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That's the applicant. Okay.
Yes.
It's kind of confusing. So you asked what's the biggest problem? Certainly the installation can be done in a way you could not create a lot of loss of life of creatures. The biggest problem I have, and I know these culverts, I've walked through these culverts or crawled through these four-sided culverts. What happens is there's a stream, and all of a sudden you get this long expanse of concrete, usually with a bit of algae on it. Then you come out the other side, and there's a drop-off from scour. So that's my problem, is long-term you're gonna segment this watershed. You're gonna basically isolate the waters upstream from the waters downstream. That's probably the biggest long-term problem. As far as the installation, we certainly could find ways. I've even suggested the best time of year to install in my report to minimize the take of the life in the stream. I've also think no one's really seriously discussed the idea of a span, which is larger than a box culvert. We've used that quite successfully. Or an alternative is, which I've done another project, is you actually have 3 box culverts, 3-sided culverts. So you actually have the central one, which generally takes the water, but the ones on the side, wildlife moves through, and at times of high water, water goes through. There are many different ways to do this. But it's all about not severing the watershed. And I'm very sensitive to the concept of, well, because I'm chairman of my own planning and zoning commission, I don't want to see you get caught in a ping pong that planning says this, they have to come back to wetlands. I would hope we could find a solution that would meet the wetlands and planning concerns.
Thank you. Your response.
Just a discussion regarding the segmentation of the water course. Just keep in mind that at the exit, after the exit of this culvert, we go directly into a pipe about 40 feet downhill, goes into a pipe under the road, a much smaller pipe than this. So I don't know how much that plays into your opinion on that, Mr. Clemens, Dr. Clemens, sorry. Is that really segmenting a large portion of it, or are we just, how does that relate to the segmentation?
Who is asking this question?
I'm sorry, Jason Edwards, J. Edwards Associates Engineers.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm well aware that downstream there are more blockages and impediments. But from my perspective as an ecologist and a planner, you can start to undo the damages by not creating more damages. I think it's the ecologically responsible way to keep these watersheds connected, even though, quite correctly, there could be a tenuous connection downstream. Look, I've dealt with this with dam removal. There are people that want to remove a dam so you have free-flowing fish, and right below that dam is another impoundment with a state highway going over the dam. So you can always find reasons why not to do it, that it's already degraded downstream. I kind of take an approach, let's do the best we can ecologically on an individual site.
Okay, thank you.
James, do you have any comments based on what you've heard in the last couple of minutes?
I mean, Dr. Clemens threw out a couple of interesting options in terms of, kind of utilizing multiple culverts, one for the main passage of water, and then the second one acting as a passageway for animals and wildlife, and then maybe acting as like a high level overflow. I'm very interested in that as well. I'm open to more possibilities with things, but I think that this is something that still kind of needs to be flushed out in terms of, what kind of finishes are they truly going to do with inside the culvert. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to fully review the revised set of plans or anything like that due to the storm. But the depths may have to vary in order to make sure that whatever base is installed on the bottom of the 4-sided is actually sufficient and will not erode easily. We could look into the outlet, figuring out alternatives and ways to bolster the outlet for the 4-sided. Again, I'm pretty adamant on the 4-sided just because of if I'm going to have to maintain it. So, looking into additional options in that regard. But that's pretty much where my thoughts currently are.
Mike Chesnowski, Jan's Buildings again.
Mike,
I'm willing to work out with James a design that could possibly meet everybody's concern. All right. And right off the top of my head, I'm thinking about a rib base. All right, which sediment can create itself into it. So you have with little notches going in. We can talk to Connecticut Precast, see if they can build something like that for us, and it'll still be a four-sided though. But it will create a nice base, with, natural erosion in it, or we can even, put in smaller rocks inside those ribs. That's what I'm thinking right now. But let's get together with the town engineer and put our minds together. We can probably build anything we want that would satisfy everybody's concern.
Thank you.
That good?
All right. You have any questions?
You good?
You good?
Now?
I'm good. I just, I might encourage you, Matt, to consult again with Dr. Clements to, ask him his opinion if you have any questions in coming up with a design that you think is most ecologically friendly. The only last one I had was, we mentioned a number of species. I did check with the deep in Connecticut. I talked to Michael, the herpetologist about it. The wildlife that we see that you saw on site suggests vernal pools, but that all it tells us really is that it's a healthy site. They're not state. You mentioned it to us that these salamanders are not common here, but they're common in other areas of the state. Ergo, they're not on a species list. But any other comments, Dr. Clements, on the species and what this precious ecosystem that we're talking about is like, and what this is going to be like? I agree with you about Lot 9, and I appreciate what you're doing. But is there anything else that you can comment? It's a nice 3-page report to accompany the 37-page resume. Dr. Clements, we appreciate your background, but guide us a little bit here. What else should we be looking at? What else?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I think first and foremost, the biggest wetland ecological important area is what was Lot 9. And I don't know what kind of long-term protection is going to be put on that. To me, that would be, if they would put a conservation easement on that and assure that logging, that it would stay forever wild, that's worth 10 compensation wetlands. If the list was based just on Fairfield County, the dusky salamander is an endangered species. In my 1993 book, I looked at they're all over Fairfield County, all over Westchester County. They've almost completely disappeared, and there's a direct correlation with the decline of that salamander, with the basic flashiness and change in stream profiles and characteristics. So I understand they're not on the state list, but I believe you've got something very important for the region and for your town that's really worthy of protection. And I think as lot number 9 is no longer in play, that's something you really can build on. That's really the most important ecological aspect. As far as the wood frogs, they're definitely someplace near the property where some wood frogs are breeding. And why wood frogs matter is they actually have they've been implicated directly in nutrient cycling and wetlands. That was I don't know if you remember what the River Sound case, where the loss of wood frogs in wetlands was tied to the eutrophication of wetlands. But I think the two big issues, you're protecting the dusky salamander. You have moved the culvert, whatever it's going to be, much closer to the Monroe Turnpike. You have a much more near a disturbed area. So there's been a lot of progress on this particular application, more than I often see happening in a standard wetland process. It's been going in the right direction. I think we can solve something on the culvert, maybe, I don't know. But I really would focus on the protection of those seeps. And I do agree with, I believe it was the commissioner who expressed concerns about creating a pond. And next thing you got Phragmites and purple loosestrife. I don't think the pond is going to have much benefit. I think it's a sort of a formulaic response And we shouldn't always be formulaic. We can do better by thinking of other ways to improve the wetlands and conserve the wetlands than just making more wetlands. I think that's sort of a summary of what I.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards and Mr. Chesnowski, are you guys open to the conservation easement concept and idea?
We've done them before, and the commission is will be satisfied with that. That's okay. I don't know if there's, Chris, if there's any implications in the past about conservation easements, whether the commission wanted that before. We did do that. Most of the time around the wetlands area, we do put the flags very noticeably, like every 30 feet or something, you know, whatever the wetlands director tells us to do. So that's an option. And I'll let Chris. It is open space too.
So it's almost like a bit of semantics. I mean, there's open space, it's conservation area, and you know, they're same, I think they will operate similarly.
Just to clarify, they'll operate similarly, but the open space as part of the subdivision application is partially to grant the public access to passive recreation, which seems counterproductive to what Dr. Clemens had said, which is he wanted to actually reduce foot traffic. So the benefit of the conservation easement is to add additional restrictions to that property to make sure in perpetuity it remains as not just open space, but preserved restrictions in the open space.
And Kevin, I have to look at it, but I thought my reading was that it was an option that you could have passive recreation, but it wasn't required that those areas had to have passive recreation. So if it was felt that it was not an appropriate place for it, it would just be preserved as open space, period, without passive recreation.
We'll have to look and we'll have to, I can do that for the next
That's
meeting to
good
take a look
clarification.
to figure out the legality of what one would cover under the other.
The only point I wanted to try to make too for the applicant, please keep in mind, if you're gonna go that route, make sure you come up with an appropriate plan to adequately delineate this area is my main concern. So just make sure you think about that before you come back into the commission, so the commission can then fully evaluate if they believe that your delineation is adequate.
Yeah. Because we did the same for Court Ridge. We had that. It was, you know, it was delineated as open space. It'd be the same thing here. Right. That's what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we could do either or, I think, you know,
But I think James is saying is like,
in the field delineated. you mean?
well, no, not even just that of like, is it the whole open space parcel that would have the conservation easement is actually only a portion of the open space parcel that has the conservation easement, like just to make that very, very clear, delineated on the set of plans. So what would be if something was approved with a conservation easement, it's just very clear what was part of the approval.
And then in areas where it potentially is in the rears of lot 7 and 8, having that actually field delineated adequately so that whoever then owns the property or buys it the third in the next 100 years, it'll be fully delineated and understand. Because I was just in one meeting where somebody new bought a property and they didn't realize that there was a conservation easement and they tore it all up. So it happens. So we want to make sure that's clearly delineated if that's the route that this application is going.
I would say that for both actually the conservation easement and the open space.
Well, yeah, but
For that.
conservation easement more so in my mind.
The town of Monroe used to have a standard plaque we would put up, which I don't know if that's.
For open space,
I think so, yeah.
that's something we can revisit.
Yeah.
I can have that.
Okay.
They
So,
also-
just for clarification, maybe Dr. Clemens can weigh in exactly what, you know, I had thrown together a slide that just showed this portion in the rear is becoming open space, but to me, it sounded like he wants to, and rightly so, protect these fingers here. So perhaps we could do a conservation easement that would be like 5 feet outside the limit of the wetlands. That would protect that area, just rather than an open space of the whole back, just go around the wetland area. You know, that would be my suggestion.
You had originally 12.5
So we still have large open space in the back. I was adding additional 2 acres.
You're adding another 2 acres.
That's what we had proposed, yes. But there's an area in front here that I think is what the area of concern is. I want to make sure we're addressing his concerned area. That's what.
You gave us a yard. I'd like to take a mile. Can you?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to avoid.
I think you get the right, you're on the right path that we want all of that to be. And I don't know about the other commissioners, but I definitely don't want people tramping around in there. That's not, we want 4, if you're on 4 feet, you're welcome in that area, but if you're on 2,
Generally, the conservation, you can still restrict humans from accessing the area. I mean, you can still walk in there, you can still go into it. It's not a cordoned off area.
I don't want to make it a
If there's
recreation
there
area.
or something else that you want to actively pursue, that I don't see, I mean, I'm not an environmental expert, but I don't see that being typical of conservation. Usually you're allowed to go in and maintain it even, if you own the property. I'm not saying that we want to do that, but prohibiting access completely, I don't think is what anybody want.
I can build a wall. So, all right,
So we have to figure
I
out.
want to say something, I could tell you.
Oh, yeah, chomping at the bit.
Go ahead. Floor's
We're
yours.
talking about open space quickly. In my experience, get open space, you get a deed restriction with it. What's the open space limitation? So it's a conservation easement that goes with the open space. But that's my experience. So I would suggest you guys get a draft and bring it to us. As far as the culvert, did you guys look into the openness coefficient that I talked about last time?
I believe someone in my office did, yeah. I don't have that answer for you.
Okay. My experience with a 4-sided buried culvert, I believe it's a 1 foot minimum. And generally they say to put the natural material back in the culvert. But I think you need to do a scour analysis or something. I think you could go to a 4-sided box. You just have to make it bigger and bury it deeper. But filling a 2 foot high, 2.5 foot high box culvert with 6 inches of material, I mean, I don't know how logistically that's gonna happen. And I think what's the slope of the culvert?
It's around 10%.
Yeah, so it's not gonna stay in there. So you're gonna have to come up with an analysis that's gonna determine what's going on. I would suggest, how wide is this wetlands? I mean, it doesn't look that wide. What is it, 10 feet wide?
That area is probably in that neighborhood, yeah.
So, I mean, I would suggest a concrete arch, steel arch pipe, something that just spans the whole thing with some footings on either side. There's no worry about the town and it's scouring because it's gonna span the whole area. That's just my thought. Did you design the subdivision, particularly these ponds, to hold the water quality volume?
My understanding is yes.
Can you confirm that for our next meeting? Is there, you've shifted the main road over, away from Old Zor Road. Do you think that's gonna be an issue with the DOT?
The angle of Old Zor, the way it comes in.
I think it'll be okay.
Okay, yeah.
Then the other question would be, going into the catch basins, coming down the hill towards Route 111, you've got like 300 feet on the west side with just one basin at the very bottom. And then you've got 2 on the other side. I understand that that's the top of the hill and you got a driveway. I'm just wondering whether that basin in front of Lot 8 should be put on the other side of the road as well, just to make sure that all the water in that area ends up in that basin. And when the leaves are covered, the catch basins, it just doesn't blow right by.
I mean, we'd be okay with that, I think.
The box or road culvert. That's the stormwater quality. And that's it. So if you could confirm that it's holding the water quality volume for each of these ponds, because I can't see these plans, what the depths are.
I know we submitted for the latest layout, I don't know if James has even had a chance to look at what we submitted to him, so.
And I'm assuming each of the house, lot developments will have that they'll have their own stormwater
Some do, some don't.
retention.
We accounted for certain area of impervious area, amount of impervious area on each lot, so some are routed into the larger basin, some have their own on site.
Okay.
If you go over that amount, you have to. But a site plan is gonna be required for each lot either way, so you have to account for it when you pull it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kelly?
I think over the course of this conversation, most of my immediate questions have been answered. I am curious, not being an engineer myself, is something like a bridge possible for the crossing? I don't know that I know of any bridges in Monroe aside from the big one, but is that feasible?
I believe that the discussions with the town engineer and public works were that they did not want that either for maintenance reasons, long term. That's a maintenance issue for the town to accept down the road. And James can tell me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that discussion was part of your discussion with my client.
Yeah. Again, the way the current application is structured, we're going to accept this. And we have one other bridge in town that I'm even aware of that is the responsibility of the municipality to maintain, and we're actually replacing it. It's not cheap, it's very expensive. We really want to shy away from it in terms of having that responsibility if we can avoid it. Is the simple answer for you.
Okay, Jason, we'll get together with the town engineer.
Yeah.
But again, you're not
Yeah, no, I
conditioning
was,
your approval on
Yep.
what we think planning zoning would do.
in the spirit of understanding
Yeah.
what the concerns are on both sides. So, I think that's it for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. A lot of my questions were answered, specifically the bridge. I was going to bring that up just to see if that's even an option or something that can be brought to us just to see. I understand that there is one in Monroe that is going to be repaired, but I mean, how long has that bridge been there? How long has it needed to be in repair is something that, we could, I would take into consideration, especially if it comes to the environmental impact of this area. Just because a full, according to the report from Dr. Clemens, he and I are, I agree with everything that he says here about a three-sided culvert or even a bridge, just to protect the environment. So that would be how I feel about everything here.
Comment?
Well, no, I just want to say, because, there's talk to this bridge, and it sounds to me like there's some ideas that have come out tonight with regards to four-sided box culvert, that we could work with the town engineer to try to address it, in what we're hearing, from this commission. So, we'll take an opportunity to meet with James and come up with some ideas. And so we could come back with you, because, I know the bridge option is something it seems acceptable to the town, but maybe we could do something here.
Yeah. So look, just from my perspective, all fair points. I think talking about the four-sided culvert, and some creativity around that doesn't hurt. We're trying to talk about all the possible alternatives that will satisfy our area of concern and preservation and not stop you in the next stage. And so that's it. The commentary, that's it. Thank you.
For me, again, I'm with the rest of the commissioners. I think most of my questions have been answered. I would like to thank you guys for coming in with some rather significant adjustments. We brought the disturbance down at least to a third of what it potentially was before. So I applaud you guys for making an effort. And I do feel like we're getting close. We're certainly are at a point where I think we can get the right minds together, and I think we can find a solution that will hopefully satisfy kind of the needs of everybody. And while we don't necessarily have to take into consideration what other commissions might have to consider, we don't want this ping pong back and forth of we approve this, but we don't approve that, so we will take that into consideration to whatever degree we can. But ultimately, yeah, we get to decide what's gonna, be right for this from an inland wetland perspective specifically. So, any other questions or comments?
I have the exhibits to read into the record.
Dr. Clemens does have his hand raised. He's had it raised for a
Oh,
little
sorry.
bit. If you want to let him speak real quick.
I just want to make the distinction between open space and conservation easement. An open space, if it's open space, people will come in with mountain bikes. I've seen a lot of damage to these kind of sensitive habitats. I've worked on a large property, the preserve state forest, which was acquired at great cost by the state and has been totally messed up by unfettered recreational access, to the point where we've had a 60% decline in the amphibian populations just because of people. So I think if you have a conservation easement, you certainly can have people walk on it. But when you say open space, it can mean so many things to different people. So I'm trying to make that distinction here. This is an area where you want to have conservation, where certainly human access is fine, but you don't want the standard things that come with more of a park-like area where people do all kinds of mechanized activities. And I do agree that we have to be very clear on the boundaries when the lots, because those backyard creep into protected areas is a huge problem, either directly converting them into lawns or by dumping. There's a lot of dumping that goes on in from house lots into protected areas. So those are the kind of things we want to try to avoid here.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
Does staff have anything they want to add to what you've heard?
No, I believe all my questions have also been answered. If the commissioners are done and satisfied, we can go into the exhibits.
I ask, you're reading all of the words in all of these?
No. So for the commissioners, we have received, I think we're on exhibit 35, something of the sort, between applicant submissions and neighbor comments. What we did for you is we've been sending them in packets and emails and other stuff. So we have taken every single letter that we have gotten up to this morning at 10 a.m. and put it in a packet for you. So you have every single public comment, email, or letter that has been submitted for your review. Some of them you've already looked at. Some of them are newer since the last meeting. So that you have the availability to read every single one, as well as they're on the website. So they're available for circulation. What we do is we just read the list of everything that's been submitted into the record, just to make sure that it is publicly available and that people are aware of the fact that it is on the website and is part of the physical record copy if somebody were to come in to look at it. But no, we are, as a general rule of thumb, not going to read word for word any of the letters that have been submitted.
Just a list of.
Just the list. Some of them have asked to be read out loud. However, due to the quantity of it, and I know that the commissioners will do their due diligence and they will read every single letter. We are not going to read every single one of them out loud, nor are we going to read the ones that specifically were asked to be read out loud. It is entered in the record. You guys both have physical copies and have digital copies and available digital copies online.
Okay. So read us your list, please.
Since the last meeting, and you're gonna have to let me go slowly to make sure that I don't miss any, and I'm also giving a proper description. Exhibit 19 is Sun Valley Estates project narrative for 1536-1564 Monroe Turnpike, received July 24th, 2024 by Jason Edwards and Associates. Exhibit 20 is Rick Smith's site observation takeaways that he read at the last meeting. Exhibit 21 is a letter from the developer just granting the third-party consultant access to the property site, also including a revised version for Exhibit 22. Exhibit 23 is the third-party consultant resume, backup information, and report that has been discussed tonight. Exhibit 24. And I'm not gonna, again, read them, but I will give a quick summary. Exhibit 24 was received August 20th, 2024 by the owners of 237 Cottage Street. They had concerns about their well going dry, and they were against the project and had some additional questions related to in the Wetland Commission, the guidelines for the intersection rules, which I believe was reviewed. But had very much concerns about environmental concerns for the property. Exhibit 26 was from Ken Kawachi of 17 Sunrise Terrace, not in favor of the project. Exhibit 27 was by Susan York of 14 Ecobini Trail. Again, not in favor of the project. Aubrey Weller of 33 Downs Road was exhibit 28, and they included both a letter not in favor of the project as well as all of their past letters that were submitted as part of the previous application that were not in favor of the project. Exhibit 29. Apologies, some of these are from someone but was forwarded by somebody else, which makes it a little confusing. 1215 Monroe Turnpike, Brian Zorena. The estate of Nancy A. Zorena and Katie B. Zorena, not in favor of the project. Exhibit 30. Was not sent to me. Is a letter from September 26, 2000. From James P.R. White, Chairman of the Commission for the Town of Monroe. Let me see if it's associated with another email.
For exhibit 30, I see you're on 30, right? That's
Yes.
It's a letter from.
Oh, got it. That's just an attachment. I'm going from back to front. Got it. I'm going from back to front. So the way it was just labeled. So, received August 23rd, 2024 by Paula Jelly at 219 Cottage Street. Not in favor of the project with some additional backup information. Exhibit 31 was from Allison Engstrom of there is no address on this, but was looking to have an independent contractor and is not in favor of the project and urging the town to reconsider this and dedicate it back to nature in some means. Exhibit 32 was a follow-up correspondence with Michael Clemens, as we had asked about the potential wetland mitigation efforts for the stormwater basin, which I believe he has expanded upon that at tonight's meeting. Sorry, we have to go to second folder sometimes. Exhibit 33 was an email from Sally Perusi of 205 Cottage Street. Exhibit 34 was an updated preliminary review by myself, which was looking at the updated plans. The applicant updated their tree removal of significant trees, which are 30 inches or more. And then my additional comments basically had to do with the third-party consultant's review. I think the only really unsatisfied comment is any of these wetlands that are being disturbed are Army Corps regulated. which is just going to need to be reviewed from a permitting perspective when we get to that point in the process. And that is 34. I do believe either very like 10 minutes before closing today, and after the town of Monroe closed, I do believe there was maybe 1 or 2 more emails that came in. We will process them tomorrow and circulate it to the commission for their review.
All right.
That concludes the exhibits.
Okay. I'm gonna call a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
For those that need to take a break for a minute. So we're recessed. Do I have to strike the gavel for that? Okay, we're back in session. All right, where are we at on the agenda here? Are we up to the public comments at this point?
We're all still on the same application,
Right.
but yes, I think we're ready for public comments.
Okay. Is there anybody in the chambers that would like to come forward and make a comment?
And I apologize, I don't think I have a pen up here.
You take us off mute.
Yes, we're up. Yes.
After me, Donna wanted to add something, but she just went to the ladies' room. It's a 1 senior, so. Where, just have that conversation.
That's why we just took a break. And so-
If you could, what's your name and address?
Well, before you get started, and this is for everybody, more, to give everybody an opportunity to speak. So we are going to ask everybody to try and keep it to 3 minutes. And if at the end, if you want to come back up, we'll let you come back up. And we want to give everybody an opportunity to speak tonight. So, okay.
Great.
Go ahead.
My name is Paula Jelly. I live at 90 Cottage Street. I've sent in a letter. I have a couple questions about what the applicant has presented. One question was about riprap rock versus native rock. Now, when I first put in my gravel driveway, I suggested to the person, riprap, he said, oh, don't do that. It's very sharp. It'll cut your tires. And even a friend of mine who I visited out in Pennsylvania, she put that in for her driveway. And it cut tires. My dog wouldn't walk over it. So if you use that to line inside the culvert, animals, small animals like foxes and bobcats, they're not going to walk in that either. So I would recommend the native stone. Am I correct about that riprap stone as being really sharp and used for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a size thing. Riprap is used to stop erosion. But you would never use it on a driveway. It's too big. I mean, it starts being that size and grows much bigger. So
just consider, if it's harsh on the animal's feet trying to cross it. Okay. Second question was that second alternative map of where they had the cul-de-sac end was directly behind my house. It's a very steep hill. Is that going to be cut into the hill? And how is water going to be drained off of that?
We can have them answer some of those questions for you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. You guys want to make any comments to her questions at this point? You want to address it later?
Should, yeah, the question about the cul-de-sac. Wait, maybe make questions.
We'll just answer them all.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else in the gallery want to? Please come forward, state your name and address.
And if you wouldn't mind also putting it on the piece of paper.
Donna Kunkel, 26-minute drive.
Please speak into the microphone. Thank you.
26-minute drive. Had a question. Last week, after the storm, obviously, it was probably the middle of the week, and it was a backhoe digging again on 111.
in that area. I don't know if it was releasing water, they got that back home, but they were there for quite a while and doing a lot of work there. Does anyone know?
It was on the
Is
property.
that related to this application?
It seemed like it was right on that property, so that's why I was wondering. I didn't know if that released some of the water. That was maybe there were vernal pools and that released water down. I don't know how that works with vernal pools, but it was just a question when I drove by and thought it was fun. That there was backhoe there, and it was like my question of what are you doing?
Well, we can ask the applicant to address and see if they've done any work, but
I'm also curious, has anyone from staff been in
I
that
didn't know
direction?
if it was a town, sorry, I didn't know if it was a town vehicle doing the work or our state or.
I think it was the house.
Who was there?
Can you just tell where, a little better, where exactly?
It was like right where that property
In the roadway
is.
though, or on the roadway or in the property?
Just downstream.
It was like over the side of the roadway, so I would call it on the property.
They were red trucks?
It was like a backhoe.
Well, nothing that we were
Just to
doing.
say, well, it definitely wasn't us.
Yeah, no, we were
I think
always
they were-
trying to figure out what it was.
There was drainage issues there. Maybe James knows something about it, but there was drainage issues on the culvert on the other side of the road there. So they may have been doing something with that. I know Stevenson lumber in that area, they had some major drainage issues.
Yeah.
So.
That's true, that's true. So, and that's my other concern is if anybody went there after the flash flooding, I know everyone's saying it's a 1 in 1,000 year flood, but the weather is getting a lot crazier in the area lately, just all around the country. So I think we're gonna be seeing a lot more crazy weather, so it's just, to me, it's concerning the amount of water that I saw. I live in the area, it took me 3 hours to go, I was 5 minutes away, and it took me 3 hours to find a way to get home that day. So concerned over the amount of, if anyone saw the water down 111 that day, it was crazy. So, and everyone that saw the damage to 34 and everyone knows about that. So that's my concern with more homes and stuff, what's gonna happen there in the future with all the runoff of the water, so that was basically it, and just wanted to confirm, you are accepting more emails, is that correct?
Yes, so we will accept any emails or comments from the public until the public hearing is closed based on tonight's comments. It sounds like we will not be closing the public hearing tonight. It'll be continued to September 11th with as long as the applicant is willing to grant us an extension because we've reached our 35 statutory day limit. And the next September 11th, so they have till September 11th to continue to write emails.
I don't think there's anybody else in the gallery. Anybody online would like to make some comments? We have one person. Go ahead and unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Yeah, there we go. Mark Lamont at 51 Downs Road in Monroe. And I wish to address the specific issue at hand, but also a bit about the process. I don't claim to be a legal expert, but I want to address the process. It doesn't seem to me that these public hearings, this is now the third one for this particular property, that they're hearings. Rather, for those of us who are members of the public, they seem to be a placation and a foregone conclusion that this development is going through anyway, and it's just simply a matter of making everyone feel comfortable that due diligence was done in the eyes of the law. Our testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Well, anybody else there, I raised my hand during the previous discussion. No one called on me. I had specific input, which is now forgotten. But we're limited to 3 minutes now, while everybody else in the first half of the presentation can go on and on until they've completed their thought. In the past couple of presentations, presenters opposing development or expressing concerns have been discouraged. In the last meeting, people who are voting on the voting registrar for the town, who have more than one member per household, were discouraged, or there was discussion about refuting testimony from more than one person who is a voting member of the community. One of the commissioners, I don't remember his name, I'm sorry, but one of the commissioners up there twice in the last two meetings wanted to add his own personal testimony about his personal inspection of the property, and was, the first time he was discouraged of doing so from entering it into a public record, and the second time he was given a little bit of pushback and was finally able to do so. Testimony, if I call it testimony, from the knowledgeable members of our neighborhood and community, while entered into the public record, I don't feel like they're being addressed. Because this project, everything I'm hearing tonight and previously, is going forward nonetheless. Rather, all the input that we give is used to tweak, rework, and attempt to rezone previously established town rules and regulations in an effort to approve the development. I can only say the old rules and regulations, like the Constitution of the U.S., were established for a reason, and now they seem to be circumvented. We're tweaking things. We're tweaking 2-acre zoning. We're not gonna put in public water management things, but they're being circumvented in an effort to deliver what seems to be financial objectives and not quality of life objectives. The last hearing a couple of weeks ago, I read into the record a crucial part of the state statute on wetlands. Rather than repeat myself, I just ask all of you and planning and zoning to reread it and take it to heart. The property, in my opinion, given it's what it is and where it is, should not be developed at all. It needs to be protected and preserved, the entire 30+ acres. Its destruction or alteration in any way impacts all of us in the vicinity, while the town has no commitment to repair negative impact and damages to those of us who surround said property. It is a wetlands. It's an aquifer. It's a wildlife habitat. All of this is discussed in the Connecticut statute about inland wetlands, and the home of multiple species of mammals, reptiles, and birds, and it is vernal pools. And by the way, I find it kind of interesting that Dr. Clements, who I believe, I did not read his report. I only got summaries of what he had written in after his study was complete from some of my friends that live in the neighborhood. But if I understand it correctly, he had said or written in his report that there was evidence of vernal pools, and tonight he retracted that. I don't understand that. By the way, in the 1,000-year event that we just had on Sunday, pretty much, because I live here, I walk around, I was a University of Vermont forestry major and graduate. I'm an outdoors person. When all, sorry for my expression, when all hell broke loose on Sunday, I walked around to look at what was going on. And really the only property in our area that absorbed much of that water was that piece of property, because there's no development on it. It absorbed the water. While what was over on the Stevenson Lumberyard side of things, completely denuded property, that was the headwaters for a river that wiped out the box culvert. I don't know if it's 3 or 4-sided culvert underneath Route 34, Route 34, and wiped out and demolished Ipers Cove Marina. So anyway, with that, I just this particular property, I just don't feel it's appropriate for development. Let's stop this destruction. And it's not the only property in Monroe. It seems to be something that's systematic in the town at the moment. We're destroying our town and the town that we live in. And let's stop it. Let's stop that destruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else online who would like to make any public comments? Anyone else? Okay, I guess that's it for public comments.
Should we ask? Does anyone else have any follow-up? We did say that you have 3 minutes.
Do you have any follow-ups?
Call it Deli, 290 Cottage Street. This is a photograph of 290 Cottage Street storm drain. But 1564 Monroe Turnpike beyond the sign. And the water runoff from 1564 is clear. That means that foliage, the trees and the underbrush is absorbing and preventing soil erosion. This is 290 Cottage Street in the foreground, and in the background is Cottage Street and Route 111, where you can see there's mud and silt. That corner has no vegetation other than grass, so there's a lot of soil erosion. So keep that in mind when you allow a lot of tree removal and undergrowth removal. This is the storm drain that's in front of my house. It is about 10 inches below the road grade, and it is completely filled up from a little bit of the runoff from 1564, but it's mostly runoff from my property because it's a house. A lot of trees have been removed. A lot of it's lawn, still have a lot of brush. But if you remove a lot of those trees behind my house, this runoff will be worse. I realize this is a supposed 1,000-year flood. That doesn't mean we won't have another one like this in 1,000 years. It's about odds. 1 in 1,000 chance of getting another one next year. So this is the runoff to the north of my property. And the woods that you see in the background, that's 1564 Monroe Turnpike, the wooded area. And as you see, you can't see water runoff because that wooded area is absorbing the water. This is the waterfall on my driveway retaining wall. Even though what's directly behind that, there's a few trees and a lot of underbrush, it's still, the hill behind me has a lot of water draining off of that hill behind me, and it comes off there. So keep in mind how to protect my property from development behind my property, so I won't lose my driveway again. I have 30 inches of water in my basement. Oh, I do have those photographs. Oh, no, I don't have that one. The cement floors cracked because of the water pressure coming underneath. There's so much water coming off of that hill behind me. Please protect my property from water runoff.
Can I ask, the cement floor cracking, was that a result of this storm that
Yes.
just happened?
Yes, and it heaved up a couple of inches. I haven't measured the floor change, you know, like you take the tape measure from the floor to the joist of the basement from where it's still normal versus here. I haven't measured, but it kind of looks like a 2-inch heaving. It's just stunning to see what water damage could do. And all that water is coming off the hill behind my house. Please protect my house from this development. Thank you very much for your kind consideration.
Thank you. See, Dr. Clemens has his hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I just would like to respond to Mr. Lamont's statement that I retracted my testimony. That is actually not true. If you read the report, which was done in a single day, I said there is a potential for a vernal pool in one area, and the wood frog, there could be vernal pools near that area. Dr. Danza and Mr. Pop expanded on that. They were out in the rain after severe rains and found that that area that I thought could hold water didn't. That satisfied me. And Mr. Pop gave a hypothesis, which, as there are no vernal pools apparently on the property, where the wood frog that we found may have come from, the detention basin. When I go out there for a day, I see things that raise questions. As far as vernal pools, my questions have been answered for the site. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else online that would like to make a comment or in the chambers? Okay. Do you guys want to respond to any of the comments that were made tonight?
Chair Commissioners, I'll be brief, because I think there's some discussion, like there was comments regarding riprap. I think that is going to, we'll probably hold that until the next meeting, because that's going to be talked about there. I think Ms. Jelly referenced an alternative. It's an alternative. It's not what we're proposing. And I think it's for the cul-de-sac, which is on the opposite end of the wetlands. It's not here. Here's the wetlands. I'll also just state too that we are required, which I think this commission knows, that we have to reduce our runoff rates. And so that's being proposed in this project.
Just to be clear, I think one of her questions was more related to the lot that abuts her property. And she said it's a steep grade and asked if it was going to be cut into as part of the cul-de-sacs development. I think that's what the question was. Is that right?
Correct.
She was referring to the alternative plan that was shown, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that's not what we're proposing.
It's not what we're proposing.
Okay.
Yeah, just, okay, so thank you for that, Commissioner. There's a, and then, just on Mr. Lamont's comments, I mean, one of the charges of this commission is to look at feasible and prudent alternatives. So, we obviously can't talk outside of a public hearing session. So sometimes, we come to you come and present in these hearings and, we have these productive conversations about how to embrace alternatives and to improve a project that doesn't require you to have to approve it, but it is a way, and I think, the discussions we've had on these hearings, at these hearings have made this project better. And we appreciate the feedback that we've gotten from the public and also from the commissioners, from the engineer and Dr. Clements. And, as my client has done, and Chair, I thank you for your words about, what we've done with this project. My client has been open to looking at these issues and trying to find better alternatives. We've reduced the lot. We, originally came in, we thought that the farm road was a good location for the road. We talk to you, you say, no, let's try to minimize the impact. We go and we look at that. And now it's the same thing with the culvert. We will go ahead and do that. So, my client's more than willing to work with the town, has been the town engineer on this. We will continue to do so to hopefully further improve this project and hopefully meet your standards for approval. So I think everything else I'll kind of hold until the next meeting, unless there's anything else
So we're gonna get together with.
Yeah, we'll meet with staff and we'll review these things. I know Dr. Clements had that comment regarding open space. I did look at the regulations quick while everybody was talking. It does say may include passive and active space. So I don't think it's a requirement that it has to be something that's open to the public. But again, that's something, in this time frame, we'll talk with staff and discuss. But with that, we would consent to an extension to continue the public hearing to your September 11th hearing.
Okay.
If you have any other questions, obviously happy to answer.
Okay. All right. We need to make a motion to extend it, or we just,
I don't know.
oh, we haven't, no.
Peggy Lamont.
She can unmute herself.
Yeah, go,
Peggy Lamont, you have your hand up?
yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Audrey Wellner, 33 Downs Road. And there's a few comments in my letter that I wanted to bring out. I agree with, I'm sorry, I don't know the man's name, 51 Downs Road, and also Paula Jelly. I think that you're not looking closely at some of our comments plus you're tabling them by just filing them. And I made a comment in my letter that this is not a sole incident. According to Commissioner Brenda Bergeron, Deputy Commissioner of the State Division of Emergency Management, she agrees also that this is on a cycle of 30 to 50 years that this happens. I happen to have lived here in 78. We bought the house around 70. And about 8 years after we were in here, one of these deluges came through and it took a crack in my south cellar wall from the floor all the way almost to the top of the cellar wall. And it had leaked ever since when the water backs up to it. If you look at Waterview, the sinkhole there, what is washed out of the ground is all your culverts that you're talking about putting in. And all of the repairs to 34 and the back of Waterview is all new disturbed land. This land is on the side of a incline, and it's the more trees you remove and the more ground you disturb, we're all going to be down in the Housatonic River. I think it's ridiculous. Leave the land alone. It is not supportive. You've got hydrostatic pressure under your cellars. The water is not only coming in, it's coming up. And the more you put on the land, the worse it's going to get. But you seem to be overlooking anything that we comment on. That's my opinion. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else online? I see somebody with their hand up. Peggy Lamont.
I think Audrey was using Peggy Lamont's. No?
No, she was calling from. Speaking of which, can you, please?
Is there anybody else online that would like to speak up? Okay, I think we can move on. We need a motion to,
Let's do it just for fun.
okay.
Motion to continue the hearing,
September 11th.
September 11th.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kelly to continue us to 11. Do I have a second? A second from Commissioner Smith. All in favor? Aye. Yeah, unanimous. Okay. We will continue this until September 11th.
Dangerous task for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I just say no. Maybe I'm just done. No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, since we didn't complete anything, there's not much to deliberate.
Correct.
On to that, and we are tabling the bond release until our next meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so we got our activities report.
Agent approvals, IAA 2024-12 is 37 Blueberry Hill Road. Proposed 9-foot by 14-foot addition to the rear of the house. It falls within the upland review area. Went ahead and did it as an agent approval. And we are waiting for the appeal period to end. Public notice has been given, and I believe that already ended on the 15th. So they are good to go.
Okay.
Agent approval, IAA 2024-13 is 63 Rygate Terrace. removing an existing 13 by 13 deck and replacing it with a 26 by 16 foot deck on the back of the house. Again, falls within the upland review area, about 25 feet into that upland review area. Did it as an agent approval. Public notice has been given. The appeal period will end on September 11th. And then, as long as we get no opposition, we're good to go on that. A couple of enforcement issues, 68 East Village Road. We are waiting. We're waiting for a soil science, a soils report and a wetland delineation. Soil scientist has been approached, and we don't have a start date for that yet.
We invited them to come to this meeting, correct, or the next meeting?
And what?
Or the next meeting?
No, we invited them to this meeting.
Okay. They were invited this meeting in order to speak on behalf of the violation. They are not in attendance tonight. We'll follow up with them. They have a valid street-wide opening permit from the DPW. However, that only permits anything from basically the edge of the road to the edge of their property line, the right of way. And they went significantly past that with their grading and things of that nature. So they had talked about maybe doing some work in that area. So originally we were made aware of it in April. We've given them the summer in order to get a wetland soil scientist and do any sort of anything that they proposed to do in that area. They were maybe going to put a garage or something to sort up. We said that we'd remediate it all in one point instead of making them do work that they were just then going to potentially put back as part of a valid permit. We haven't gotten anything up to this point. We've given them, almost half a year in order to do this. So we will be following up with them after this meeting. They were invited to come here to speak on their behalf. So we will follow up with them after tonight.
Uh, 82 Elm Street, issued them a letter of voluntary compliance. It was brought to our attention that they were selling vehicles out of the house, which was a zoning thing, but the zoning issue made us look at a wetland issue. There are wetlands directly behind the house. And from GIS, we're able to see that they've put in a driveway, not up to the wetlands, but actually in the wetlands. They've been very compliant. And I'm giving them the opportunity to remove the millings that they have there, take the driveway out, and come together with a plan for mitigation. I hope that's acceptable with the commission, that I could look at this plan and they don't have to go to a soil scientist and accrue the expense of that.
You're comfortable?
Yeah, it's a small enough violation that I think you could rely on me for that. That brought me to 88 Elm Street because it's right next door, and I saw the same thing over there, except this one had past violations and citations that were unanswered for doing the same thing, filling in wetlands and storing vehicles on that.
Is it the same owner?
No. Related, but no, not the same
Not the same
owner.
owner.
Not the same owner. But there were unanswered citations, so that forced a letter of voluntary compliance and a request for a site visit or site inspection, and that'll be done on Thursday this week. The homeowner or the property owner does claim that this was 10 years ago and that he did answer, and he has all the paperwork for resolving the issue. So I'm going to go take a look at that and see what that looks like.
Okay.
And that's all I
Remember a couple weeks ago, I asked you to check out Pepper Street and that.
All right, so yes, I did go.
So
I did go on site, and there were a number of silt fences that were breached. brought that to their attention, and they did repair those. I'm still looking into, I can't seem to find if they're allowed to be storing the amount of material that's on there.
There's conditions in the zoning approval of the height of the piles that are allowed to be in like the bays that were approved. I'm having a hard time following the paperwork to just figure out exactly where they are in the process, their construction process, opening process, how this is all working. So that is on planning and zoning's list to go down the rabbit hole to figure out exactly.
So when you walked in, did it look a little?
It's a mountain.
It's a mountain.
It's a mountain.
It's-
If they're operating, then
Yeah, that's the issue. If they're using it as part of their operation stockpile, they're not in compliance with the planning and zoning conditions of approval. If they're using it as part of construction because they're still part of the property that's being constructed. That's another conversation we're gonna have to have with the town engineer and things of that nature.
So it's ongoing.
We have to figure out the answer to
it's an
that.
ongoing investigation.
Okay,
As far as the wetland issues go, I did address the
okay,
concerns, and they did address them. So
okay. So at this point, it seems like it's more of a planning and zoning
Yeah.
thing. So, okay. All right. All right, so moving on, any questions about any of that? Okay. We have no permitted use as of right, no correspondence, general discussions and decisions and other. All right, we have the minutes, so I think we have to look for the vice chair to approve the minutes this time, only because he hasn't had a chance to look at them yet. So,
So I did review them. The meeting from March 13th, I actually went back and watched the video because I was absent. I have no adjustments to those. So if we're going one by one.
Do you have adjustments to any of them?
The only one, and I don't know, maybe it's.
If the answer is yes, then let's just go one by one. So that if we do have adjustments, we can do it that way.
So I can make the motion, right?
Yeah, but you got abstained.
Oh, that's fair. So should I not make the motion? Do you want a motion for this?
Someone else make.
Motion to approve minutes, March 13th, 2024, regular meeting.
we have a motion, Commissioner Stewart to.
I'll second.
Oh, wait a minute. We got a problem because you were also absent.
Right.
Once again,
I'm willing to make a motion.
who's,
Everybody else.
Commissioner Smith, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, yes, I would like to make a motion to accept the minutes of March 13th, of which I was present.
With much enthusiasm.
Now I'll second it.
Commissioner Sabian seconds that one, so that's good. Okay, I don't have two, one of these is yours. Okay, all right,
Vote.
next.
Wait, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? All right,
Abstain.
two abstains. So 3 ayes and 2 abstentions.
So the abstentions were Stewart
and
and
Kelly,
Kelly,
yes,
just for friends seeking meeting.
yes.
Smoother sailing from here. So for the minutes for the meeting on April 10th, 2024, I have no corrections, no adjustments, and I motion to accept and approve these minutes.
Oh, okay, yes, I motion to approve and accept these minutes.
I was just looking at it, sorry.
That's a second.
At the second,
Smith, second. Okay, Kelly motion,
Aye.
second.
On
all in
favor.
favor?
unanimous, okay.
All right,
All right, so you tell me at the meeting minutes for July 24th, the last meetings. It's pretty material, but being that Kelly is in my name, I noticed that one of the people, Kelly Hengos Carano, her name is misspelled. Just,
Yeah, let's do it.
and then
What page is that on?
on page 3 of 5, the third from the last bullet,
Yep.
it's EY. And then on the following page, she's referred to as Kelly Carano instead of Kelley, and it's Hengos Carano. I don't know if we need to be that formal or not.
Yeah, I mean, Eric with a C or a K, that's
Again,
important, so.
for her name, I think we should.
No, I agree. Okay, so on on page 4, you're saying
There's
it,
3 of 5 first.
yes, I got that one.
Then 4 or 5, it's the fourth
Yep,
last paragraph.
got it. So yes, we can vote with the 2 amendments.
I motion to approve these minutes for July 24th with those 2 amendments reference.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kelly and a second by Commissioner Sabia. All in favor? Aye. Unanimous.
We are up to date on minutes for the first time in 2 years. It's late.
Gigantic thank you to Carrie in our office, and to Christy, who have both been working very diligently on both planning and zoning and inland wetlands, so that we are now currently up to date and we have systems in place moving forward. And it should be, as you said, a little more smooth sailing from.
Wonderful. Okay, so next we have public hearing and regulations discussion.
Yes. Actually, can we switch this? Can we go to Gus? James, do you want to be on for the public hearing and regulations discussion?
We could switch. Go on.
Are you on vacation, James?
He is.
Yeah, I am in Cape Cod right now. Yep.
Gigantic thank you to him for
Yes,
being
thank you
on,
very much.
pretty important. So if we can even get him out of here like 10 minutes earlier, I'd like to do it. If you want to give your Gusky Pond update.
Yes, we can switch that. Go
All
ahead.
right, tell us about Gusky.
All right, so I don't know if any of you have driven by it or taken a look at it. The beaver dam that was in place is now gone. And it completely washed out the old dam that was basically remnants to begin with. So now what has happened is the water elevation of Gusky Pond has now dropped over 2 feet. I just kind of wanted to give everybody a heads up. This is on my radar to try to remedy, because what ultimately this is going to impact is obviously the wetland, because now it's significantly smaller and there's not a lot of water, but I don't know how quickly this is going to go. I'm going to try to streamline it as best as I can. But one of the things that I want to try to get accomplished is, because obviously we're dealing with all the maintenance and washouts and everything else from the storm. We've gotten a lot of concerns about the need for guide rail along Gusky Pond. And the issue that I'm having is that slope in some areas, it's a very steep slope from the edge of the road down to the pond. So what I'd like to do in the interim is I'd like to put some riprap just to help stabilize that slope. I think that now might be a fair time to do it, considering the water level's down, everything's kind of down, and while we're kind of in that mode. But I just wanted to kind of bring it to your attention and find out if you have any issues with that. I'm just trying to protect the road essentially, and then I'm also still looking into guide rail, which is the safety concern that a lot of residents have had, which is like the end goal for along the road. Does anyone on the commission have any questions, concerns, input on it?
I don't know that really, I understand that people might want it there, but have there been any accidents? I've gone around that curve a couple times, parked on the side of the road, had no problem. And
Yeah,
I've walked, down towards Gusky Pond, so I don't know.
There hasn't been any accidents, at least that I know of in the past few years. I'm still kind of walking through with the police chief to try to find out if there have been any. The main concern that I have is just because there hasn't been any, if there is going to be one, it most likely will involve a car flipping over and in the water. That's my ultimate fear and concern. So I'm not taking the request lightly. I'm still investigating. This is not a done deal or guaranteed that there's going to be a guide rail there. I just, it's under my review, and I've been looking at it, is basically just the simplest answer I have. But the main concern for tonight with the commission was the installation of riprap along that certain areas of that bank where it is very steep. Because right now there's a lot of areas that are steeper than 1-to-1, and it's really only being held there by plant roots. And so now I'm concerned with the water level dropping, that those, that wildlife may even die because now it's not able to get the water that it once was able to. And the next thing you know, that falls in, and then the bank really just goes with it. But I just want to make sure that, is there any major concern? Are we okay with me doing this as, part of our maintenance, and kind of like our blanket, or our DPW's approval? Do you want to see something more formal? I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts.
Anyone?
No, it sounds good. I appreciate you paying attention to it, but carry on. It's my
Fine
thing.
with it.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I've just been trying to be very transparent with the Wetland Commission with like everything that we're doing. So, you know what I mean? And I don't want any of you to be blindsided by the fact that, oh, next thing you know, a resident sees a dump truck there dumping some material along that edge right along Gusky Pond, and now they're, kicking and screaming, and you're standing there without any knowledge of it. So that's what I'm trying to prevent.
Appreciate it.
It probably will kick and scream, but at least now we know.
I do also, for the record, don't mind the idea of a guardrail there. I was a passenger in an accident in the 1990s and was saved by a tree on the edge of Gusky Pond. So
Well, there you go.
I don't think it's the worst idea. It does happen. There are teenagers and
Oh, no, without.
they could use it. I also have a 16-year-old as of the day of our next meeting. So
Yeah. And the road width gets down to, what is it, 18 feet wide in certain areas, which is not really conducive to two-way traffic. You know what I mean? Ideally, I'd want to see 20. If I could see 22, I'm even happier, but 18 is a little narrow, and that forces people to pull off and do things like that. Which, if people aren't paying attention, we all know how it is nowadays. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for being
Enjoy
here,
your
James.
Vacation.
Yeah, really.
I sympathize. I was on vacation the last meeting, and it's, you stayed on camera almost the whole time. I muted and my face while I swore. My wife was yelling at me in the background. So cheers to you.
Yeah. She's sitting in the living room. The two kids are down in bed, and I've been turning the camera on and off every once in a while. But yeah, no. It's one of those things where, because of the storm, I really felt that I needed to be here. Anyway, so it was just kind of ill-timed is all.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, your FEMA report is due Friday, by the way.
The director's on it.
Oh.
I've been gone all week. I provided like most of the information for him before I left on Friday. So
He didn't look stressed today. He looks like he has it under control.
it's fine. I'm not worried about it. It's not my name on it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Take care, Jen.
See ya. All right,
Wonderful.
moving back up to public hearing and regulations discussion.
So really three things. The first thing is, as we've discussed in the past, if we have a residential project that comes in, if they are doing work that's closer than 25 feet to a regulated wetland, we bring in from the commission no matter what. Because of the storm, we have two things happening. One, major damage to certain properties, of which case it's not just you guys are the easy ones. They're gonna have to come to the Inland Wetland Commission for some of the repairs, but they're dealing with FEMA and potentially Army Corps, and there's a lot of other approvals that need to occur on some of these really damaged properties. So what we're asking is, especially if they are going to be coming back to this commission anyway in the future for a much bigger project, are you able to allow us, even if they're within 25 feet from what is now a wetland, because in some of these locations, streams literally moved, processing things as an agent approval? So basically just helping them do what they need to do to stop the madness, which is driveways falling into, rivers and streams and things of that nature. And I do agent approval in quotes because we're not gonna have them pay a fee, do anything like that. We just want to have it of record, so that we know what's going on, so we can help give guidance if need be, of how they're going to, temporarily stabilize this, before they come in for a full application.
How long temporarily would you want to have this approval?
It's really just, for storm damage, as people come in over the next couple weeks, maybe a month or two, and say, hey, we're trying to figure out what to do. Some people just, they don't even know what to do. There's we've seen a couple the last couple of days that were pretty extensive. And they don't even know where to start. So they need to hire a civil engineer to even go through, because literally they have foundations sticking out of the ground as stuff is in a river, and so they need to hire some people, and they need to do stuff like that. So they've come in and seen us, that we may not even see an application for another 2 months, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So I would say this is for the next couple of months at the max. And then anything past that, any real work.
Yeah, I would.
So let's make I'll make a motion to extend, temporarily extend through the end of the year, the ability of enforcement to happen without coming to the commission.
For specifically storm damage.
Yeah, storm damage.
Specifically storm. Yes, exactly. It would only be limited to storm damage.
All right.
Through the end of the year.
Does that sound like that works for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Kelly.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're good.
The other item is we have heard, I think this commission has even heard, during some past applications, and I know that I've been asked from commissioners myself, the length of the process that it takes to get through the Inland Wetland Commission from the time an applicant literally drops off the application to the Inland Wetland Office to the actual approval, and if there's any way to kind of condense some of those timelines. We've had the chance to do some of that research, and unfortunately, we don't really have any easy answers for that. Where we really get hung up is planning and zoning is very clear. A special exception permit goes straight to a public hearing. If you're doing a text change, it goes straight to a public hearing. It's very much laid out. The only time there's a little bit of a deviation is subdivision. Whereas inland wetlands actually defaults on a regular hearing, and actually defaults that the Inland Wetland Commission does not have a public hearing unless it meets, 3 different requirements. It's a public interest, significant impact, things of that nature. So what happens is they come in. This commission traditionally has only heard new things during the first meeting of the month. It comes in the first meeting of the month. You guys make a determination if it's a regular hearing. The public has the opportunity over the next 14 days to put a petition in, that if they get 25 people over the age of 18, then the commission has to turn it into a public hearing. So it's not like you can vote for it to be a regular hearing and then hear it that night, because you need to give the public the opportunity to put a petition in for those 25 days, which is why we hear it 14 days after at the next meeting. If you vote to make it a public hearing, then we have to notice it 2 times in the newspaper between 2 and 15 days apart. And that requires it to go for a full month into the next meeting. Once we get there, then you start the public hearing, of which case then we go down that rabbit hole, which we're asking, for extensions for the 35 days, you have 65 days. So that's why sometimes it takes 3 months, could really take 4 months from the time someone puts in an application to the time that it actually gets heard. The only way I have thought about the way to shorten it is, one, this commission just is committed to the second meeting of the month, and we can hear new things depending on when someone gets an application into this commission. And then the other one is potentially changing the regulations to allow the applicant to request to go straight to a public hearing. So the way it is now, staff does not have the authority to say, the commission's probably going to make it a public hearing. Even though we probably all know it's going to be a public hearing, that's still not authorized for staff.
It can't be, we still can't have a public hearing the first meeting in any case, right? I mean, they can't come and the first time they see us, have a public hearing, correct?
That's how planning and zoning does it, because it's very, very clear. So that's why the question would be, if the applicant, could we change the regulations so that one of the ways it can go to a public hearing is not just based on if the commission allows it, if the commission deems it to be significant or a public interest, but also if the applicant just straight up requests for a public hearing.
And so they notify people and then show up.
Yes.
Bang.
And then do it that way. I don't know if that's legal. I have a request into the town attorney to review the legality of that. But before I send him down that rabbit hole, the question to this commission is that even something you want to entertain?
It prevents us from being presented like the light version and then being presented the.
Well, yeah, because then they're just gonna, yeah, you're right, because they often just throw the stuff on just enough to get on the agenda and then
Right.
come back and give you more.
Correct. So
If it's legal.
I think it'd be better just tell us what you want and then we'll give you the feedback rather than hint at what you want. And then we have a few questions, but we go in too deep and then he's coming back the next time and then he's going in deep. You know, I'm just trying to avoid that extra step, but.
Well, there are some applications where the applicant knows it's going to be a public hearing.
Exactly.
Based on the nature of it. And so instead of them having to wait to come in for us to officially say it's going to be a public hearing and then
They're
they
all
just
prepared
walk
for it,
out.
right.
It's basically eliminating that.
Exactly.
I'd rather have regular meetings. I mean, 2 a month. And if we don't.
I mean, I'm not.
Well,
saying
this,
that
this could be part of that, and these don't have to be one or the other, it could be both.
The thing is, in the past, when we were having 2 a month, the engineers weren't ready. I mean, it was 2 weeks later and they just, and it was, they'd come, they'd stand up, we haven't gotten anything done. So.
Can we change the time limit? Like, I know.
No.
If that's,
That's state statutes.
well, then
The only thing I would think about is in may, bigger applications. And I know it's a lot to ask, is that you could maybe draft the approval motion so that we have it when we're closing the public hearing. So that,
write it on. the
you know what I mean? So that we could spend 5 minutes rather than saying, okay, we close the public hearing, let's wait another month.
Right.
In an ideal world, yes, now that we have additional staff.
I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. It would just be the canned motion, and then we would add 2 or 3 conditions and
Right.
then you have the
That would-
canned conditions that we always would put on there, and then we add the 2 or 3 we have and we're out the door.
Right.
And they save a month that way. Sorry, don't be too excited there.
That's an option. That's,
I mean, all things are on the table here, so.
Which line?
Who's complaining about this?
no, I believe
Some applicants have.
one of the applicants,
We are very slow.
I think it was 205 Monroe Turnpike. They there with the whole wall situation of them they were just basically like, look, we submitted this application 3.5 months ago, and now we're just getting into the meat of it because statutorily they submitted it. We wouldn't put it on the agenda because it wasn't the first meeting of the month. So we pushed them another 2 weeks and then it was voted on. And then that pushed them another month, to even start the public hearing. Then they presented, then they came back a month later with new information, so it was one of those things where it was like, from the time they submitted it to the time they really got into the conversation to hear feedback from, the commission, it was like almost 3 months later. That was their issue, was just statutorily it took a long time to get there. And it was just statutory reasons. It wasn't.
The only thing I hear from residents is, I didn't even know you guys were addressing it. Well, I said, well, you have to look at the meeting packages. And so,
I actually, that's a great, I don't want to interrupt you. I have a follow-up to what you're saying. So
well, that was pretty much it, is that they, I don't know I don't know the public, I don't know anybody who actually, there must be some lawyers and other people who go through the public hearing things, but most normal people,
They can sign up if anybody's listening. They can sign up on the town's website to have it emailed to them. on the agenda will get circulated to them for any of the commissions that they want to.
So I was doing some inquiring myself today about, because we post these notices in the Voice. And I said, the Voice was used as a liner to my garbage can until I joined this commission. And now I do occasionally look at it, right? And some people maybe look at it much more closely, but the general population doesn't know what we're doing. They don't know, but they're also not looking. So something important happens and they say, well, I didn't know. It's technically their fault for not looking. But my question was, is there maybe a more efficient way for us to post notices? And I asked, could it be on the town website? Could it be on Facebook? And I was told that that's something that has actually been discussed and looked at often. And there is a bill
Yep.
at state level.
So I was gonna
that's
say.
actually considering pushing for this, but that would have to pass before we could really.
Yeah, it has been there for a while, and I will tell you that there's attorneys that have been in front of the town of Monroe that actually are the ones that pushed and helped.
Yeah, well, advertising is expensive.
Some of that, no.
But
Well, we would say
but
that-
the legislature wants to fortify the newspapers too. They need their money.
I said, my question was, what happens if the Voice goes out of business? And they were like, well, we can go to the Connecticut Post and
Yeah.
We do, that's what
that
we're
will go out of business because Hearst owns it. So but I think.
You should see the cost of advertising.
We pay for public notices?
We do.
Yes, so. it
So we
has-
would
But they
say.
pay a fee, but they
It
pay
has
a
to
fee.
be published in a newspaper that has general circulation in the town of which the public hearing is happening. For public hearings, it happens twice. It happens between 15 and 10 days, and it happens again between 10 and 2 days. And then the abutters get noticed as well.
The thing that's obvious to me, just speaking to the application that's on the table now, the Monroe residence page is a place where people are paying attention to what's going on, whether you as an individual are a fan of it or not. So like somewhere like that would be a better way to put it in the public's eye. But again, obviously a lot would have to happen, the bill would
Yeah,
to
you'd
pass.
have to plan on spending a lot of time in this room.
Right, yeah. Well, that's fair.
But we are spending it, I mean.
But nothing is more disturbing to me than someone who has clearly no understanding of the fact that we're volunteers and we're trying to help the community. And it's like the impression being so dramatically different than that. Like, I'd rather people come, honestly. I'd rather the town be aware of the process.
Yeah,
I'd
but
rather
they think that we're,
Oh,
and we have they don't know about the fact that we have regulations we have to follow.
Right.
I mean, I had a
Well,
conversation with my neighbor who just thinks we can just say, no, it's not good for the town.
Yeah.
They can't build it.
Yeah.
They have no idea that we have regulations we have to follow and
right,
we're focused.
right. So anyways.
Okay,
I think-
let's get another beer.
So having said all that, I guess
We
we're,
want the town attorney to look into if it would be legal for the applicant to be able to request the public hearing.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
So, I mean, that's not saying you guys are gonna go for it or not, but at least we
I think we,
can take a look.
Yeah.
And
I think that's an easy one.
are we allowed to put something new on the second meeting of the month to open something? That's really,
The real, when I think about it, the real thing is we cannot, I guess, they say you can't, well, I guess if you're notifying everyone and putting it in the paper, they have the chance to speak and they'll have notice.
Right.
So you're not really,
my understanding when I had first started here is that if somebody submitted something to be on the second meeting of the month, this commission did not hear anything new the second meeting of the month. They would only, and statutorily, you can do that. You have 65 days.
Well, it's kind of a Keith thing. He was trying to minimize the number of meetings that we were having, and he was hoping that would prevent a second meeting of the month if we could get all the business done in the first meeting. But lately, it seems like that's just not happening. And there could be some small things that maybe we could just run through quickly.
Yeah.
In that second meeting. just because it's new doesn't mean it's big and long. It could just be a quick little sign off.
But it's the small things that don't take a long time,
Right.
right? So having another meeting doesn't really help them.
No,
It's the big ones we want.
Right,
But I think most of the time it's the big ones, it's their fault it takes so long.
right.
They're not ready.
Okay, so we'll play it by ear. Maybe we'll start hearing a couple of things new, especially if it's just for acceptance and there's other things on the agenda.
If there's already a second meeting scheduled, it feels like if there's some, might as well do them and get them out of the way. If there isn't a meeting scheduled, maybe we can.
The only time there's not a meeting scheduled is in August, and I can't remember if you guys
I think
have,
July and August are the 2 months that there are only 2 meetings.
I can't remember what the December calendar is.
Maybe December and November with Thanksgiving and all that stuff too.
Yeah, December, you only have one. Oh, because the fourth Wednesday of the month is actual Christmas Day.
Well, we can schedule a meeting for that day, right, guys?
I'll be here.
Which day?
December 25th.
I got nothing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm good with that.
100%.
We will, in the next month or two, be circulating the calendar for next year.
Speaking of next year, last year we discussed 6:30 start.
I had heard that was discussed. I've actually seen drafts in the bylaws, and then I was told that that didn't come to fruition. I don't remember the exact.
We even voted on it, right?
It was,
Voted on it.
I was told that was never voted on for the bylaws.
We'd be happy to bring it up again.
Mitigate, you wanted at 6:30?
Well, it's been published with the state, right? So you can't really change it until the new year. But we could have public hearings earlier. We could schedule.
We have to change in the bylaws.
Oh, you and your bylaws.
All we gotta do is vote on it.
We have to change it in the bylaws. And yes, we should change it in the calendar for next year. That would be the best place to do it.
Be okay with 6:30. Get us out of here before midnight.
I'm okay either way.
The earlier the better.
It's fine by me.
All right.
You're gonna be the only commission that starts at the.
I think we got started at 6.
EDC, I was on EDC. We got ourselves together earlier. Now nobody.
No one wanted to be there.
A big part of what the logic was originally, I think, there were staff members that were having to travel home a
And then
little
back.
bit longer. So you guys had been here at town hall since start of the day, so.
Right.
I don't, I do daycare pickups, so I gotta go home, get a
Oh, does it work for you?
1-year-old, try to shovel.
Does it work with your guys' schedule? I don't want to put it in.
I can make it work.
And I mean, it's something that is not gonna work.
Yeah, we're.
I mean, heaven forbid, if you can't make it, we just won't be the same.
Yeah.
I'm not the deciding factor moving forward. Does it work for you?
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, the whole goal here is that I would be doing these meetings and come January 1st, maybe I'll be up to speed on that. And I'm right here in town. It makes no difference to me. It makes no difference whether it's 6:30, 7, 6, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so we can,
So 6:30. All right, so we're gonna tell Carrie, change it to 6:30, and we will also do it in the bylaws then at the same time.
but not effective until that's
But not effective.
next year.
Yeah, because they've already published. Basically, we would have to cancel every regular meeting. We have
Well,
to.
it's-
stay
We just
special.
have a special meeting,
Yeah, correct.
6:00 or
Right.
6:30.
Yeah, so we would have to cancel the regular
No,
meeting.
you wouldn't. You just have a special meeting
Every week.
for that first half an hour.
Right.
So it'd be 2 separate, that's what we did today.
Can,
You want to read that damn.
can I adjourn us all now?
Public outreach is the
Right.
last thing. I'm gonna talk where we land on that.
You sound like you're ready to go.
But yeah.
All right, now can I adjourn us?
Yes,
Please.
Adjourned
9:53.
Great job.
at 11 o'clock.
53.
Hour earlier than